This is John Pearman from johnpearman.com, and you are listening to US Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to US Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild. Nowhere in the world celebrates modernism better than Modernism Week in Palm Springs, California. Every February, they have a huge architecture and design festival, and for the last 5 years, US Modernist has been there interviewing nearly all of Modernism Week's keynote speakers, plus special guests at the US Modernist compound, aka poolside, at the hip Hotel Skylark in Palm Springs. If you like modernism, you're likely to be a fan of the great John Lautner, known for some of the most innovative, beautiful, and concrete-intensive residences in the world. On today's show, George Smart talks with Lautner's right-hand architect, Helena Arahuete, who continues his legacy over 25 years after his death, restoring Lautner houses and creating new ones for a new generation of appreciative owners. George is also going to be visiting with the owners of the Lautner Hotel, a really cool spot in Desert Hot Springs, California. It's a little town only 20 minutes out of Palm Springs. They have a hotel that Lautner designed with only 4 rooms, each one a masterpiece. And wrapping up, George talks with a great friend of US Modernist, Trina Turk, CEO of the world-famous clothing line and owner of a vintage Lautner house in Los Angeles. This was my second time at Mod Week in Palm Springs, and even though we talk a lot about architecture and buildings, I was reminded that a lot of mid-century modern is about the insides of these places. The Eames chairs, the Arco lamps, Eero Saarinen's little white dining tables, and the Barcelona chair by Mies van der Rohe. Those chairs should come with a warning. Once you get in, you may never get out. Or, as the Eagles said, you can check out, but you can never leave.
Oh, yes.
Seeing these iconic pieces set inside those astonishing buildings made me realize how good they make me feel. And after a day of walking around Palm Springs, relaxing in a great Barcelona chair was heaven.
It is pretty special, Tom. And if you're into mid-century modern, it's great to come out and join us. It's a huge festival at Modernism Week of Mid-Century Architecture, wonderful lectures by people from around the world, brilliantly curated exhibits, detailed art and architecture, shopping, art galleries, martinis everywhere. It's just pretty fabulous. But one of the things I like most about going out there, from the moment I land at the airport, is going to sleep and looking up at the mountains, the majestic mountains all around Palm Springs. And then you wake up the next morning and it's cool and still, and there's not the humidity that we have here in North Carolina. And you see the sun coming up over these beautiful mountains. And it just repeats day after day after day. I don't know how they do it there, but they manage to have this as a regular twice daily spectacle.
Yeah, the mountains have something to do with it.
Yeah.
They really do.
If you want to go with us in February 2021 and stay at the US Modernist compound, email me at george@usmodernist.org. US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Nichiha.com/USModernist and by Modernist realtor Angela Roll.
In a caper we are kind of making up, Modernist realtor Angela Roll was born in Monte Carlo, the love child of a Brazilian heiress and her Italian driver Sergio. Sent to boarding school in the Alps, she snuck out at night to bartend at the 5-star resort in Vaal, Switzerland. It was there, in the Peter Zumthor-designed thermal spa, steaming in the November chill, that she overheard a detailed conversation. It was between Stavros Pedikov, a wealthy Russian, planning a modernist Paris hotel, and the famous international architect Jean Nouvel. Inspired, she whipped up a better hotel design on a bar napkin, which she gave to Pedikov, and guess what? It won the commission. Nouvel, however, was furious and in his rage turned to a life of crime as Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers movies. Yes, you've seen them, and the resemblance is uncanny. 18 months later at the hotel opening, Nouvel took a cue from the Three Stooges and secretly managed to place hundreds of banana peels in the new hotel rooms. Scores of people were injured and Angela was taken to court. Taking the Channel to London, she hired a barrister, Eric of Windsor. He successfully fought the charges on appeal. And they got married next year. She moved to America to become a formidable real estate agent with modernist architecture training for buyers and sellers of modernist houses. Angela Roll is your special agent. Reach her at angelaroll.com. That's ROEHL or 919-995-0550.
Thank you, Tom. We've done more than a few shows on the amazing architect John Lautner, and that's with good reason. Time and time again, he comes up as one of the most beloved modernist architects in history. More than, dare I say it, Frank Lloyd Wright. Lautner studied and worked with Wright in the first class of Taliesin Fellows at Spring Green, Wisconsin. Lautner oversaw many buildings, including the Johnson Wax Building in Wisconsin and Wright's Sturgis and Obler projects. He created two of the most famous houses in Palm Springs, the Bob Hope House and the Arthur Elrod House, both in the South Ridge area and both quite close to each other. One of Lautner's early projects was a small hotel in Desert Hot Springs, California, a small town about 20 minutes from Palm Springs. It was taken over by Ryan Trowbridge and Tracy Beckmann, who meticulously restored it, and best of all, you can stay there. So my crack research team has been pulling your dossier together of information.
And none of that is correct. It's all outdated.
Yes. And I love this photo of you because it looks like Stabler and Benson of SVU.
It totally does.
Totally does. You guys could have a detective show together.
We do.
I think we just bought the property, and that was taken by Judith Lautner.
That's probably 2008.
Yeah, we were babies.
When we were 16.
We were Lautner babies.
When we were 16.
I think we were 16.
Yeah, barely. Just rolled in with some cash.
It was like our first car. It was our first Lautner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me how you guys decided to buy this place in Desert Hot Springs, which obviously needed a lot of work and still is a, labor of love to keep it going.
We were on a world tour trying to find a hotel.
We were thinking about buying a small hotel in Central America. We went to Belize, Honduras, Costa Rica,
Guatemala.
Yeah, and we were unsuccessful at finding a property because Leonardo DiCaprio bought the best one, and so did Francis Ford Coppola.
Jerks.
So we came back to Los Angeles. Ryan purchased an apartment building on Sunset Boulevard in Silver Lake. We gutted the interior, and he asked me, how should we design it? And I said, let's pay homage to John Lautner, my favorite architect. And Ryan said, sure, show me something. So I got on the internet.
Yeah.
I Googled John Lautner, and the Desert Hot Springs Motel was up for sale. And we looked at each other. We'd never heard of it. We said, shit, let's just go out and look at it.
And it happened to be an open house the next day.
Next morning, Crosby Doe.
Yeah, at like 8 a.m. or something.
And we drove out. We were wearing like ski clothes because it was winter.
It was like 22 degrees out
at
here.
the end of 2007. And we opened the door to unit number 2. And I think we heard the voice of every architecture god saying, buy me, restore me.
Wasn't Frank Gehry in there? I'm sure. Didn't he have his honeymoon out
right.
there? Yeah.
I don't know.
But Crosby Doe was sitting inside
with his cat.
With his 2 hairless cats. Weren't there 2
They weren't hairless,
cats
but they were cats. Yeah. With
that
a little
space
like Dr.
Evil.
With a space heater on, and he was just like
freezing
reading a book
and lonely, hoping people would show to the open house.
But we were the only ones.
We were the only ones who came that day.
Yeah.
And we fell in love with it instantly.
I think we were there like 2-3 hours, right?
I think we stayed. He toured us around, and it was meant to be. And then 6 months later, after trying to get financing on it, because no one cared that it was a John Lautner, it was in the middle of nowhere. Nothing comped. Nobody cared.
The houses next door were all $50,000 in foreclosure.
And we kicked the tires, and we convinced our real estate broker to offer a ridiculous offer. And back and forth a few times, and they accepted our offer, and we got the property. And I think we drank wine, listened to music, stayed up all night until we decided to go to work on it.
But it did take us a while to close that escrow, almost 6 months. And then we ended up having to pay the mortgage because it took so long to close the escrow. Remember that?
Yeah. We had to put a healthy deposit down on it, or a payment.
Yeah.
We financed the rest.
Yeah. 40%. We had to put 40% down.
And then it was about, 3 to 4 years to do the renovation and to open the doors at the end of 2012. And Ryan did most of the heavy lifting.
But before it opened, we got flooded at the end. We had a mudslide come through.
Well, we were almost done with the renovation, and then we had a horrible mudslide. And it was no good. We had to start all over again.
It was horrible.
What, did the mud get into the rooms?
Yeah.
There was a foot of mud.
From where?
The hillside. I guess there was like a flash flood in the mountains, and all the
I think
mud
a
ran
water
down the
tower
hill.
exploded or something. I don't know. There's lots
did
of
not. It was-
folklore.
That's a better story, isn't it?
Right? I told you.
No,
I'm a better storyteller.
what happened is up in the foothills, they had overbuilt the area, and the drainage line or drainage runoffs or whatever were too small for the amount of mud that came in, so it overflowed, and then it just came down the mountainside.
Yeah.
Right into the hotel and basically filled up the back room about a foot in the front.
What happened was
about an inch.
we didn't wall it in yet. It was
Yeah.
still exposed to the street, so if you were driving by, you could actually see the Lautner.
Yeah.
So after the flood hit us, we decided to wall it in. So the wall is to provide privacy, but it's also protection.
It's a fortress.
Yeah, and a lot of architectural Puritans were upset with us because they thought the public deserved to see the Lautner. But
We disagreed.
We disagreed because if they could have seen the damage that was done by the elements in the desert, they'd want us to protect it.
Just
so
the
wall is
wind
integral.
alone. You know, that wall helped with the wind,
The wall,
the sandblasting,
the wind, the flooding.
mud.
But we like
it's
it.
protected us again. Now it floods our neighbor's house instead of us.
Right.
They need a wall.
They do need a wall. Then it'll flood the golf
next
course.
house, yeah,
the
something.
golf course down the way.
But really, I mean, we are, very popular with the public. People travel from around the world to experience the Lautner. We're the only one you can really stay at. So you can imagine if you didn't have a wall around it, people would be pounding on your door every hour of
Can
the
I
day,
come in?
demanding a tour. My phone rings off the hook daily with people standing there wanting access to the property. So all of our guests love the wall. Hate to say it, but it really is good for business as well.
But it makes
more,
a beautiful courtyard inside now.
Well, definitely.
The lighting and everything.
But as a business owner, we want people to want to come in the wall. So you've got to call
Right.
and book a reservation.
Right.
If it wasn't closed off, people would just
They just be
happy
hanging
to
out
stand
outside and taking pictures with it.
Yeah.
We even had a guy roll up in an RV. He made the pilgrimage across country, and he parked literally in front of the Lautner and pulled out a lawn chair and stayed. I had to ask them just to back up a bit so people could park.
Was he on the roof kind of looking down like that?
It was really a lot of bizarre things
Like
happen. When you own a
double-decker
Lautner, people want in and they'll do, and we found people climbing over the wall.
That guy
people
just came
climbing-
back.
He did.
Yeah, he was just here. He just like, hey, do you remember when I showed up and you were working on it like 8 years or 10 years ago?
We have a lot of people that repeat customers or visitors at least that come once a year. They never pay to come inside the walls, but they just want to look to see what progress we've made. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But this year for Modernism Week, it's been exceptional. Every year gets bigger and better. I think every time we open the doors for a tour, there's at least 100 to 150 people waiting outside.
Right.
That's why I'm a little hoarse from talking to, it feels like thousands of people from weekend number one.
Yeah.
But it's really, really wonderful. And our hearts sing, and we're so happy that people want to experience it with us. And we work every single tour because as, ambassadors of Lautner, I think it's really important to be there present to talk to people, educate them on Lautner, on the renovation process, the importance of architectural preservation. So I think we're good custodians of the property, and we share that with others and try to inspire them to learn more about Lautner and other wonderful architects.
And this year you're doing a lecture series out there.
We are. We came up with a Lautner lecture series hosted by Danny Heller Art, my husband, shameless plug. He's awesome. So we are asking all the Lautner owners that we are currently friends with. We hope to be friends with more. We've been to as many Lautners as we can get into.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a Lautner owner club, really, but we've bonded really nicely with Kelly Lynch and Mitch Glazer, who own the
Right.
Harvey House.
Yes.
And they shared their incredible journey of bringing back this neglected property to life. And John McElvey,
Yes.
who purchased the Garcia home, and he shared his story. And it's really exciting to hear people talk about Lautner because we have our unique experience in renovating one, but people always assume we just found the property like that. They think as designers, we just walked in, painted the floor a new color, added some new interior furnishings, and it's done. But when we give our lecture about our renovation, they actually get to see that we took it down to nothing. The only thing that was standing was the roof line and the floor.
Yeah, the concrete and steel. All the wood was
And
replaced.
everything else, the glass was gone and the red was gone.
Yeah.
But so when they watch these before and after pictures, their mouth hit the floor. They're
Yeah.
like, we had no idea what you guys did.
Yeah.
Same goes for John's, renovation, Kelly's renovation.
Oh, I think maybe that's why we won an award for the renovation too.
Yeah, and it's nice to show people what we do. And we also had Marianne Rollison there. She's the daughter of Leonard Malin.
Yes.
He's the
Chemisphere.
gentleman who did Chemisphere, engineered it. So he couldn't make it, unfortunately, so she represented him. And it was a lovely tribute to her dad and all that he went through. And the story, it was incredible to hear that he had $30,000 to spend.
But it's unbelievable seeing the engineering and how they actually constructed that thing. 'Cause you don't see it in books at all.
Right.
Like the construction pictures.
You see the after,
and how
the glamour shots.
Like how they put these pulley systems together and literally like lifted all these crazy beams and stuff into the air to hike them up the hillside because there was no other way to get them up there. Just crazy seeing this stuff. That's what I think is most interesting is
genius.
how some of this engineering was done and how to get it built. Pretty crazy.
And then we have Trina Turk and Barbara Bester talking Saturday about the Selkin renovation.
Okay,
That's the newly discovered Lautner and
hidden
Echo
Lautner
Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Barbara Bester is going to be speaking about her renovation of Silvertop.
Excellent.
I think it's a great
Where she got
series.
married.
She did. That's
Yes.
right. Yeah, we've been big fans of Barbara because we're Silver Lakers.
Yeah.
And her architecture studio has been in our backyard forever. And we love seeing, what she comes up with and creates. And Trina, Trina's like the goddess of the desert.
Yes, she is.
We adore her madly and everything she represents. So it's nice to have her back again. But we're really proud of the series. We just came up with it on a whim because every year we try to boost our programming and again spread the word about John Lautner, who we absolutely adore and is our favorite architect. Did you ever hear our lecture about how we renovated, George? If not, we should give you a private one.
We'll do that sometime. Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe I can share some before and after pictures
We've
with you.
had some other conversations. I got the short version
Gotcha.
of this a couple times.
No, but when we found the Lautner, it was completely in disrepair. It had been abandoned and neglected for at least 6 years. The
2
gentleman
years.
before us
2
passed
years.
away. It was only 2 years?
Yeah, when he died in 2005. We got it in 2008, so 2.5, 3 years.
Ryan has a better memory than I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, when we found it, it was just sad, neglected.
Steve Lowe
It was
had it.
covered in white paint, stucco.
Oh, yeah.
The redwood had so much water and termite rot, you could just stick your hands
dry
through
rot.
it.
Yeah. I
And-
tried stripping it and put your fingers right through the wood. There was nothing left.
Yeah, and we decided to work on one unit at a time so we could figure out how to actually work on the geometry of a Lautner. You've been inside. There's no right angle anywhere. The amount of waste we went through as designers was incredible. Because back when we started renovating, there were no tools you found on Etsy that could give you that perfect, weird, edge detail. So Ryan, with his mastermind brain, had to, basically reinvent the Lautner and recreate it one piece of redwood at a time.
Yep.
And no, we did it. And we had the Lautner daughters back out to see us. They enjoyed the renovation. They gave us their blessing.
Great.
Yeah, it was really nice to have them be a part of it from day one. I remember when we wanted to call it Hotel Lautner, they were a little, uneasy about the name. But when we explained to them how much we wanted to give their father credit and pay our homage to him, because there's lots of architecture design hotels in Palm Springs, but they're not named after the architect.
Right.
So this time we thought we'd create a bigger draw by naming it after the actual architect, and it worked.
Instead of the city.
Instead of the city. Well, we weren't about to put a huge investment into the property and continue calling it Desert Hot Springs Motel.
Yeah.
That was not going to happen at
Yeah,
all.
that's not going to have any allure.
And we had a lot of people fight us on that one too, and I consider
But
it.
that wasn't even the original name either.
Well, my opinion is it was a grandfathered in name. It had no name, so what else do you call something? The location that it is in and
Right.
what someone's currently running it as. So Desert
Right.
Hot Springs Motel, but that's not the name. It should have been called the Hubbard House because it was commissioned by Lucian Hubbard in
Well, it
19...
was a master planned community of
Right, but if you're
going
going to call something like Garcia House, everything's named after the person who commissioned it, the
should have
first
been like the
owner.
Hubbard
So it
community.
could have been the Hubbard House.
their community.
But we thought it'd be better to pay tribute to John Lautner. Thus, we called it the Hotel Lautner. And now, because we've expanded and purchased the entire end of the block and built our business up, we changed the name from Hotel Lautner to the Lautner Compound. Because
Okay.
now we have the 4 Lautner living units. We have our 10,000 square foot park, our outdoor event space, our 1957 California bungalow we call the Ranch House.
Yes.
No famous architect on record, but it's kind of now our party house, our expansion of our guest services. And then we have the main house, which is right behind the Lautner, where we basically run operations from.
Yeah. Back of house.
Back of house.
Back of house.
Exactly. So it's fun. I mean, who knows what's going to happen next? Ryan's got some crazy ideas about, speaking with other living master architects.
Yes.
Maybe buying land that's around us and possibly coming up with other living units designed by other master architects.
Well, do you know the couple at Polymath Park?
I don't think so.
I know that. I know the name, but I don't know.
So in Acme, Pennsylvania, a great young couple has started collecting houses by master architects and disassembling them and moving them to their...
Oh, I went there.
You did?
Yeah, because that's where the Frank Lloyd Wrights are, right?
Right, exactly.
That's
so there's like 4
amazing.
Frank Lloyd Wrights there?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw that last year when I did an architectural tour. I went to Falling Water and
Kentuck Knob
and Kentuck Knob, and then I went
Polymath Park.
Right.
And they're expanding all the time over there. So they'd be good people for you guys to get to know.
I think they would.
Great couple. They've been on the show before.
And in Desert Hot Springs, we've got plenty of space around the lot.
Yes, you do.
So if anybody can pull this off in California, perhaps we could.
We have a pile of dirt.
Well, Ryan already reached out to Ken Kellogg, who we adore madly, one of the greatest organic architects living, and he'd be interested.
He came up and actually saw the space and talked to us about doing an addition and stuff.
Yeah, so we'll see. You never know. We're always thinking. There's always an idea going off in our head because we love, renovating and building and sharing with people. So the Lautner's pretty much under control now. I don't think there's anything other than maintenance to keep the Lautner going. And we keep building in the park. But, once we're done, we have to have another game plan, don't we?
Take over the world.
Yes.
Architectural domination.
You'll need to have some more of those cats you can pet from your perch.
Yeah, we have plenty of feral
absolutely.
cats that we raise at the Lautner compound.
You need some hairless feral cats.
Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to come and get inside the wall?
So you just have to go to our website, thelautner.com, or you can email reservations at thelautner.com or call 760-832-5288 and ask for Tracy.
Right. Or if you want to take your RV and drive it across country.
It's free.
And just
We'll park
park
you outside and plug
nearby, you'll get a special
Don't
plaque.
say that. Gosh, we'll be in an RV park next week.
You'll be the next Walmart.
Maybe.
Perfect.
We'll have to bulldoze houses next to us just to make RV parking.
You guys are great.
Thank you very much for coming in and joining
thanks.
me.
It's our
This has been fun.
pleasure.
It's been fun. Nice to meet you very much.
Nice to meet you too.
George,
All right.
we love you.
All right.
Thanks for
Thank you. Bye.
That was George Smart talking with Ryan Trowbridge and Tracy Beckmann, owners of the wonderful Hotel Lautner in Desert Hot Springs, California. And now let's pause for a moment of reflection from Nietzsche.
Beauty, love, durability, designed to last for years to come, bringing you peace and tranquility. You feel relaxed, knowing your house can easily achieve any exterior look and any color. Wood, concrete. Your house loves feeling this good, and you love feeling this good. Nietzsche, 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 Nietzsche. Say it with me. Nietzsche. Advanced engineering. Nietzsche, Nietzsche. Durability, textures, finishes, and colors. Visit Nietzsche.com/USModernist. Nietzsche, Nietzsche, Nietzsche. That's N-I-C-H. Wait for it. A look you'll love. Nietzsche.
Helena Arahuete was born in Belgium, graduated from the University of Buenos Aires, and worked for several Argentinian design firms. She came to the U.S. in 1971 to work with John Lautner on the Arengo residence in Acapulco and became his highest regarded associate. After John Lautner's death in 1994, she continues as principal of Lautner Associates, recently completing restoration of the Bob Hope House, a project she worked on over 40 years ago.
Helena, I want to start with a quote that I love, which was about the Bob Hope House, where John Lautner said, well, at least when they come down from Mars, they'll know where to go.
I would have to correct that because it wasn't John Lautner, but Bob Hope.
Bob Hope said that.
Who said that.
Oh, okay.
No, definitely not John Lautner. His reason for designing the house the way it is because basically it had to blend with the surrounding hills and have a roof finish that would literally camouflage it. So the house would be invisible. So he inspired his design in what he called a volcano with a crater, which was the 62-foot diameter opening at the center, cut with 3 large visors oriented to the view. It was certainly not a desire to make it look like a spaceship.
But it is very large, and you can see it for miles.
Well, the reason it is large is because of the owner's desire to have a very large open but covered space to sit 250 to 300 guests after the Bob Hope golf tournament.
Oh, okay.
So it's still a great house for entertaining.
How many people have owned it since the Hopes?
One.
Oh, just one?
Just one, the current owner.
The current owner, okay. And you've been involved coming back to renovate it and restore it.
Yes, I was the project architect of the house.
Originally?
Originally. I mean, 40 years ago. So I worked for John Lautner for a total of 23 years because I couldn't find any architect who would be more creative than Lautner. So in any case, he assigned me to the house, myself and 2 draftsmen who were helping me. So I went through the whole process with Mrs. Hope and her interior designer, whose vision, unfortunately, was radically different.
I've heard that. It didn't quite turn out like Lautner originally, envisioned.
No, especially all the interiors. The interior designer had done work for the sister of the Shah of Iran. So her tendency was very ornamented.
Yes.
Which
would not go so well in a Lautner home.
No. So he was a little, disappointed, actually. And then after we finished the construction itself, the interior designer continued doing all the interiors. And several years later, there were a number of additions to the house that really transformed it. And the current owner found out that I was the original project architect, and he wanted to have the house done the way John Lautner would have liked.
Yes.
So he understood that I would understand.
Of course, yes.
Right. So it was a pleasure for me to finally bring the house to what it should have been initially.
Was there also not a fire at some point in the
That
house?
was earlier on.
Okay.
I had just started working for John Lautner a couple of years earlier. I'm talking about 1973. The house was always designed as a gigantic tent. So the roof was to be built first, and then the interior partitions divided.
The living areas, yes.
Right. And the initial concept was in poured-in-place concrete, but it was changed because of cost concerns to wood and steel. Steel trusses and steel beams, and wood rafters, wood sheathing, which burned down completely at the time they were finishing the roof, actually finishing the sheathing. A welder was welding a small area in the steel structure, and he failed to protect an area from sparks. So it happened in the middle of the summer. I was in the office when we received that call.
What a terrible call to get.
The house burned down in 15 minutes. And according to Bob Hope, who was in the news later in the day, it happened because the guards at the gate would not let the fire department through.
Was that true or just urban myth?
No, it was one of his jokes.
Oh, okay.
Like the one about the Martians.
Oh, yes, okay.
Right. So anyway, the house sat just there for about 5 years while all the lawsuits were going on. John Lautner was spared because he really had nothing to do.
Wasn't involved.
Right. And then they decided to go ahead and start construction really quickly. Fast track design and build pretty much at the same time. And that was when I was assigned to the house.
Okay.
I'm talking about 1977 through 79.
And after Bob Hope died, how long was the house in the Hope family?
Well, until it was sold, because actually their daughter, Linda, inherited the house and she put it up for sale. She invited me to give a talk to people in real estate, which I did. Mm-hmm. It was featured for a considerable amount of money, of course, until the current owner, who always loved Frank Lloyd Wright and John
He owned one, right?
architecture.
He owned the Ennis House in Los Angeles.
That's right.
Yeah.
And now he lives in the Hope House. He has his family there, so I'm happy to say that he's very pleased with the house.
Oh, that's great. So all the renovations complete now? Is it all done?
Yes, it's all complete.
Okay. When is the first 300-person dinner going to happen?
This is not up to me, unfortunately.
Because I want to come, of course. I'm ready to fly here for dinner.
Do you play golf?
I can learn by then.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a requirement or not. So far, I only know that he had family over.
I used to be great at putt-putt. I could really kill it at putt-putt. I could get it right under that windmill, just no problem. I had par 2, putt-putt course, professional, Can I qualify with that?
It's not up to me. I wish you would. But the current owner is a very private person. He doesn't like the publicity. And it has not been easy to arrange visits to the house.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though there are lots of people who are interested in visiting. But it rarely happens.
Right. And I think it rarely happened before this owner, too, that the Hope family didn't show it off very often.
I don't think so, no.
It was always kind of the holy grail of coming to Palm Springs and seeing the Hope House, or the Elrod House, for that matter, which is right next door.
Yes. It's a beautiful house.
And that's being renovated, right?
That's right. It's being renovated now.
Okay.
I am not sure whether it's completed. I believe it's not yet completed.
So those are just two of the most stunning houses in Palm Springs, really.
Definitely.
Now, one of my favorite houses is one that, of course, Lautner gets credited for design, but I understand that you were also the project architect of it. And that's this super amazing house in Acapulco.
Yes.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, just the stylizing and the way the water flows along the ridge of the house is just like otherworldly.
Well, I have to say that it was always the setting and the views and, of course, the client's lifestyle that inspired the design to begin with.
Yes.
And as far as I'm concerned, this is a very special house for me because it was the reason John Lautner hired me. I had arrived from Argentina, where I did my studies. I was an architect in Argentina, and I had to work my way through school. And I had 5 years of experience by the time I graduated, including fairly strong background in architectural concrete. Mm-hmm. So when I went to visit Mr. Lautner's office, he showed me the first sketches for the Acapulco house, he told me that he actually needed a designer or an architect who would know concrete, the metric system, and the Spanish language, because
Things all Americans do not know at all. We
Because
certainly failed the metric system.
the structural engineers were in Mexico,
Yeah.
so the drawings had to be in both English and Spanish,
Okay.
and in metric. So I qualified on all three accounts, so that's how I got my job with John Lautner.
Has the Acapulco house stayed in the same family all this time?
Yes, yes. The original clients were living there until a very recent time. I'm not sure if they went back or they moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I have been in touch with the family throughout, and I did some other designs for them, for the family.
Has that house had to be restored yet? Is it time for it to get a facelift?
Well, they did a little bit of work on it, but other than that, I mean, it's all concrete, exposed concrete, so yes, they had to re-waterproof the railing pool,
Okay.
which you probably remember from
Yes.
photos.
Oh, yes.
But other than that, wasn't much. I was there only a few months ago.
And were you involved in the project on the concrete castle out in Malibu?
Oh, absolutely. I lived there throughout for the duration. I was there at least 3 times a week, 8 hours a day, because it's such a unique freeform house that it required a lot of supervision.
Well, I'm sure you've met Tico and Jan Ricard.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
These are the guys that went on this odyssey to find every Lautner house in the world.
Right. I always call them the architectural detectives.
Yes.
Because they've seen houses that I didn't even know existed.
And they told me the story about how they tried to get into the concrete castle. The owner is notoriously private. And they would
Yes.
even draw messages in the sand below his house to try to get his attention. It's like, let us in. And
I know. They asked me, they asked the structure engineer, everybody they could, who they thought could help them visit the house.
Yeah.
But that's the one that they could never see.
And it's a real marvel of engineering and concrete, too. I mean, it's just...
It is
it's-
a thin concrete shell, completely asymmetric, so not many engineers would have been capable of engineering this structure.
Not at all.
And again, it is what it is because the owner stated from the beginning that he didn't want to have any simple, recognizable geometric forms in his house. So no squares, no triangles, and no circles. He wanted free form, curving,
Flowing.
undulating
Yes.
lines. So that is what he got. And he wanted the house to last at least 500 years. So obviously concrete was the answer because you can mold it in any shape you want.
500 years, that's a long time. Was this...
Well, I had another client who asked me for 1,000 years. That was my first client after John Lautner passed away.
Can you tell me what vitamins they're taking? Because I would like to get in on this.
Well, not in this case, unfortunately, very sadly, right when we were breaking ground on this house, which was also in Malibu, the owner passed away from cancer. And he was a wonderful person, wonderful client. The house had to look like he was living in the Grand Canyon. There were beautiful rock outcroppings in the site that were made part of the design. It's a sad story, unfortunately. No 1,000 years.
Well, you are mentioned many times in the book Lautner A to Z, where they've gone through, these Dutch detectives have gone through and taken all their findings and put them in this alphabetical order,
That's right.
which is a fabulous
They sent
volume.
me the book.
They sent you the book, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I helped them out as much as I could with information about the various houses.
Yeah, they're really great. I've gotten to meet one of them in person, but they've been on the show a couple of times talking about different Lautner homes. Do people approach you now to do projects just on their own, not connected to Lautner renovations? I've seen a number of your projects on your website. I think even you were doing one at North Carolina at one time.
That's right. And one in Australia, in New Zealand, in Alaska. I just went back to Alaska to re-photograph the house I did there. So it's been very exciting for me. At the same time as the design in Alaska, I was designing a house in Hawaii, Kauai, actually.
Okay.
So the challenge of designing in different settings, in different climates, is wonderful. It really keeps you alive. So that is really what I enjoy the most. The most challenging and interesting for me is to design something from scratch, naturally. So I don't do renovations unless they are of John Lautner's homes, because I really do my best to preserve them or change them sometimes the way John Lautner would have approved.
Right.
I worked for him for 23 years, so from seeing him 8 hours a day, every day, I pretty much could figure out what was he interested in. And I have to say that I did watch him restore some of his own houses, and he would never try to bring it back to the original. He was always interested in new ideas, so he was trying to do something better the next time, improve it. Pretty much the philosophy of organic architecture, which has to do with growth and evolution.
Well, I imagine that both he and you must be on a wall somewhere at the International House of Concrete, because they must love you and what you've been able to do for shaping these concrete homes over the years. I mean, it's just magical.
Well, thank you, but I have to say that in other countries, concrete is a material that's used much more often in single-family homes than here, where people have a negative feeling about concrete from seeing so much of it in freeways, bridges, and so on. So they do not associate that material with the warmth of a home.
Yeah, I think it takes going into a home that has a lot of concrete to really understand that and feel the vibe from it. Because it's totally different.
Besides, interesting when you mentioned this freeform house in Malibu, which is all concrete inside and outside. The concrete is formed with rough-sawn wood boards that leave a distinct texture imprint, of wood. To the point that when the house was under construction and the site was open, people in the neighborhood would walk in and ask me, "Why did you paint all this wood gray?" And I say, "This is not wood, this is concrete." So, they were surprised. But the warmth of the texture really contributes to making the concrete more appealing.
You are one of the living masters of this genre, and it's such an honor to have you on the show and get to see you in person after talking with you for these last few years. It's such a pleasure to have you come visit.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure also, and I always try to pass the torch to the younger generations, so whoever can listen to it and learn something from it, I'm all for it.
Helena Arahuete's work with Lautner can be found at usmodernist.org/Lautner, and also her work since then at usmodernist.org/Arahuete. Thank you, Helena.
You're very welcome.
That was George chatting with architect Helena Arahuete, who spoke at Modernism Week on the work of legendary John Lautner. Last on our guest list today, Trina Turk started her fashion line in 1995, and she hasn't looked back. Famous worldwide for her California-inspired designs, she's also into architecture, owning the Ship of the Desert house in Palm Springs and a previously lost John Lautner house in Los Angeles. She has stores all over the country, but her Palm Springs store is dazzling, as is the Mr. Turk store next door with fashions for men. Let's now go back poolside to Trina and George at the U.S. Modernist compound.
Trina, you and I had dinner with some people about a year ago. Remember that?
We did, yes.
At Copley's?
I do remember that.
And you said something that has stuck with me ever since. This was not too long after you lost your husband.
Yes.
Which is very sad. And our hearts go out to you for that.
Thank you.
And what you said, and I don't know if you were saying this in passing or what it was, but it just stuck in my brain like a giant Post-it note, is you said that you were learning to say yes to things. Do you remember that?
I do.
How has that been for you? What has that experience of saying yes been like since a year ago?
Well, now I've decided that I need to start saying no to things.
Oh my God, I'm late. I did not get that memo.
No, not this. I'm very happy to be here and doing this. I let the pendulum swing too far the other way.
Okay.
And I found myself so busy that I didn't really have time to just take care of sort of normal day to day. And my house in LA was a disaster area, and I would come home every night and think, oh my gosh, I have to just start saying no to things so I can get it together. But it's been a very strange year and a half. So hopefully things will sort of settle. And I'll find the happy medium between saying yes and saying no.
Okay. Well, I have to wait for the next news bulletin to come out
Okay.
about where you are with all that. But for me, it just kind of, a little light bulb came off, and I'm still in that yes period. I'm not overwhelmed yet, but
okay.
The phone call will ring. It'll be some person that's kind of weird, and my tendency is to dismiss this, and I just listen a little further, and it evolves into something wonderful. That's how it's played out for me anyway.
Right. Yeah. I guess I would say that when something like this happens to you, you're not necessarily in a normal mindset. So
Yeah. Well, here in Palm Springs, you are really an institution. I mean, everybody knows Trina Turk, knows her store, probably has driven by her house at some point. I mean, everybody knows you here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small town.
Yeah.
So,
but it gets a lot bigger during Modernism Week.
It does get bigger during Modernism. Ever since Jonathan and I first came to Palm Springs and bought the Ship House, we've been very involved in architectural activities, both with the Palm Springs Art Museum and the Palm Springs Modern Committee. And we went on many, many tours. I was always surprised that Nikki McLaughlin could find more houses to put on the tours, because it just seemed like every year she found another, 9 or
gem.
10 great houses. So we learned a lot about architecture. I'm also involved in the LA Conservancy in Los Angeles, and so all of the tours that we've been on in both places have been really, really a great learning experience. We went to Columbus, Indiana with Palm Springs Modern Committee and went to all of those amazing places. That the interior design was done by Alexander Girard, and we got to visit the Miller House, which was sort of the dream team of Eero Saarinen and Alexander Girard working together. So just our experience in Palm Springs really has helped us learn a lot about architecture, and it's become a hobby of mine, and I've met a lot of people out here through that. So I think that more than just having the store, I do feel a strong connection to the community here, and because it's not as big as Los Angeles, not even nearly as big as Los Angeles, I think that has allowed me to, be a public figure here.
Yeah. When I go into your store, what I'm struck by is that it's a bit timeless. It's not a retro store, but at the same time, it's not a completely new store. It's just this vibe in there, this wow, this is incredible. You walk in and your mind blows. I know particularly women's mind blow when they walk in there. And of course, you have the Mr. Turk section of the store.
Yes, we do.
But the other one for women is bigger.
Right.
Right. And I see women's head explode from outdoor when I'm looking in, because it just... the vibe of it all that you've put together is really marvelous.
I'm glad that you have that feeling when you walk into the store, because we want anybody who walks in to sort of be overwhelmed by the color, and really the feeling of optimism.
Oh, that happens. Yep.
Which I think is super important to Palm Springs and California in general. So, I mean, of course, we reference vintage clothing, but the thing about vintage clothing is that, a lot of times if you just copy it exactly, it kind of doesn't work for now. The fabrications were different, the fits were different, and so we really try to be inspired by vintage, but update it for now and make it wearable for people today, which have, we have different figure types. In general, I think that people are not willing, especially women, when you think of the days when women were wearing girdles and pantyhose and all these things that were quite uncomfortable, I don't think we put up with that anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty much gone. Although, are Spanx still a thing?
Oh, yeah, they're still a thing, but there's nothing worse than wearing Spanx in the desert.
Oh,
let
I
me
guess
tell
so.
you. That you want to avoid.
Tom, doesn't that sound like a good name of a rock and roll band? Spanx in the desert?
How about no Spanx in the desert?
Sweaty Monday, their debut album.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you spun that back in the day.
Yeah. I think I interviewed him.
Down in Palm Springs, particularly in downtown, even I in the last 5 years have noticed how vibrant it's become. And you are not just doing Modernism Week as a town. You've got the International Film Festival here and like 3 major concert weeks that come through every year?
Yes, there's two weekends of Coachella and 1 weekend of Stagecoach, which is really more down valley, like further east than Palm Springs, but, it definitely has an effect on Palm Springs.
It fills up everything, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And those people are walking by and rediscovering Palm Springs just by the hundreds and thousands all the time.
Yes, they are. It's a huge draw. A few years ago, there was, what was that thing called? We were calling it Old Cella. It was Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones, and I can't remember.
That's what it was called. Yeah.
No, it wasn't officially called that.
Okay.
That's what we were
It was the
calling it.
nickname.
That actually was interesting because it was a slightly older crowd.
Yeah.
Although I went, and when you were there, it was a huge mix of people. And that, they only did it once because I guess they can't get those major bands.
All in one place.
All in one place every year. But that was interesting, too.
At least you've not had a fire festival fiasco in Palm Springs yet.
No, we have not. We have
Okay.
not.
Yeah, according to my phone, it was officially called Desert Trip.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Desert Trip. Yeah.
But
And does it say who appeared there,
oh, yeah.
Tom? Yep.
Screensaver. Bob Dylan, Paul McCartney, Neil Young, Roger Waters, The Who, The Stones. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a buffet right
That's,
there.
It was pretty amazing. I mean, I just went for the Rolling Stones night, and it was really fun.
Yeah, they're still going.
Yes, they are.
They are still going.
Kind of amazing.
You'd think that maybe they've been abducted by aliens and replenished with secret DNA because they seem to have this same energy
They were
from year to year
amazing.
to year.
They put on an amazing show.
Here in the area, what do you think people get surprised by the most when they get here?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like I don't see Palm Springs really as a visitor.
The airport has no walls.
Okay.
That's one piece.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Less
I
walls than
cannot answer
O'Hare.
that question.
People who've gone to places that are very tropical, like Hawaii, are used to those kinds of outdoor
Yes.
airports. But it is different here to come into Palm Springs. And
Well, there's no humidity,
yeah, isn't that swell?
except in maybe August. There's a little bit.
In North Carolina, we have humidity every day.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter
Lucky
what-
for you.
Winter, summer, spring, or fall.
About 2 weeks in December where we don't. But
Yeah, you walk outside and you've got an instant sauna
Or as
going on.
My friend Doc Searles would say, air you can drink.
I like that. I like that. How far-reaching is your company now? I know you have other stores than here.
Yes, we do. We have 11 stores scattered across the United States. Palm Springs, in terms of brick and mortar stores, Palm Springs is our flagship.
Yes.
And our number one store. Although, along with everybody else in the apparel industry, our website, mrturk.com and trinaturk.com, are both a really important growth area for our business, as they are for anybody who sells apparel.
Everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is there a big warehouse somewhere where all the Turk stuff is being shipped out?
Yes. My headquarters, warehouse, design studio, cutting room, sample room are all located in Alhambra, California,
Okay.
which is about 15 minutes east of downtown LA, which makes it a good starting point for getting to Palm Springs.
Oh, sure.
Because I'm already a little bit past downtown and a little bit on my way.
So you can write a trip off as a business. Well, I guess you can anyway.
Well, I can just
Kill 4
if
birds
I'm
with one stone.
organized, I can just leave from the office on a Thursday night.
Yeah, that's pretty swell.
Yeah.
Now, it should be noted as well as that your house in L.A. is no slouch. You got the secret Lautner, the undiscovered Lautner.
Yes. This was sort of, my husband and I have restored many homes over the years, and we live in a J.R. Davidson house in Los Angeles. I live in a J.R. Davidson house in L.A., and I had seen the quote-unquote long-lost Lautner on Curbed, and it was sort of in the neighborhood. So I went over there and just peeked around, but it was fenced off, so you couldn't really see it. So I told my husband about it. I said, it looks really cool. Like, we should go to the open house. And so he ended up going to sort of a broker's open house.
Yeah.
And that night said, we need to buy that house and restore it because someone's going to tear it down. It's in terrible condition. And I was like, really? You want to buy it? He's like, yeah, I want to buy it and I want to restore it. So we did. And it took a long time, but we ended up restoring it over probably a 2.5-year period. And it's now a Los Angeles historical cultural monument.
Yeah.
And it's a very modest Lautner. We worked with Barbara Bester, who at the same time was working on the big glamorous Silvertop, which was right in the neighborhood. So it's almost, she was working on one extreme to the other of Lautner houses, because the one that we restored is almost just like a little cabin on the side of the hill. And
It's
Silvertop,
1,200 square feet, maybe?
yes, yeah. Maybe a little less, actually. And Silvertop is sort of, the big glamorous Lautner house in the neighborhood.
Sliding giant windows.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yes.
It's an amazing house. But anyhow, so that was a really cool project, and it's a beautiful little house.
So who's in it now?
Well, my friend Brian was staying there while he was restoring a Harwell Hamilton Harris house that was about half a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about moving over there and trying it out in the next week or so.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
Lovely. I can imagine just the different kinds of homes that you've lived in and getting the sense of scale, how each at different sizes lives in a different way, right?
Right. I mean, Jonathan wanted to move to the Lautner house, but we worked together all day, and I just thought if we worked together all day and lived in that very small house with one tiny bathroom, it might not be a good idea. And so we never actually did it. But now that it's just me, I'm going to try it.
Well, that sounds delightful.
Yeah.
You're going to have to keep me posted on how it is over there.
I will.
What's next for you in architecture and fashion? What are you working on now?
Well, continuing on the house collecting, I have a Joseph Escherick house at the Sea Ranch.
Sure, yeah.
Which is 850 square feet. It's so amazing. The design of that house is so good because it feels so much bigger than 850 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's genius design. And it was his own house. And even though it was built in 1966 for his family, he put 2 bathrooms in to an 850 square foot house, which is kind of amazing. So it was on a rental program up at the Sea Ranch for probably 20 years prior to us buying it. And so the kitchen in particular looked like it had been on a rental program for 20 years. And it wasn't original, so I'm working with Barbara Bester again to refresh that kitchen. So that's the current project. I mean, I guess work-wise, our big topic this year is that it's the 25th anniversary of Trina Turk, the company. I started it in 1995. And so we have different things going on. We have a capsule collection of an anniversary capsule collection that's coming out in March. And I'm working on a book about 25 years of Trina Turk.
What's a capsule collection?
A capsule collection is like a mini collection.
Oh, okay.
So it's a special print and an accompanying stripe. And, it's coming in swimwear and ready to wear and bags. And every category that we do, there's a component of this anniversary print. So I think it's going to be really fun and, very impactful visually, because there's going to be lots of different things all in this same print, which is kind of it's a new print for us, but it sort of has the feel of an iconic Trina Turk print.
And when's that coming out?
It's coming out in March.
And people can find that on the website, I guess.
They can absolutely
Right.
find it on the website. Yeah, it should be out third week of March.
Okay.
And I know that you know this by heart, but where are your stores that people can walk into besides here?
Okay, I hope I do this right. I'm
Yeah.
just going to try and go west to east.
Yeah.
So Honolulu,
Okay.
Los Angeles on Larchmont, Burlingame, which is a suburb of San Francisco.
San Francisco, of course.
Palm Springs, our flagship here where we are. We also have a store on El Paseo in Palm Desert,
Okay.
Dallas, Texas,
Dallas, okay.
Atlanta, Miami on Biscayne Boulevard, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, Charlotte, North Carolina, and New York City. And I hope I didn't forget anything.
Well, you went east and then north.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So, but
Yeah, I think that's...
Boston?
Right. No, nothing in Boston. And then, of course, our websites. Yeah, and of course, we sell specialty stores and department stores as well.
Well, Trina, it's been great to have you here. Thank you so much for dropping by.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Catching us up.
Thanks for inviting me.
And I love seeing you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Nice to see you, too.
That was Trina Turk talking with me at Modernism Week in Palm Springs.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned as we bring more shows from 2020's Modernism Week in Palm Springs. Hey, you want to hang out with us at the swanky U.S. Modernist compound at Modernism Week next year, February 2021? Email george@usmodernist.org. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Nichiha.com/US Modernist and by Angela Roll, your special agent for Modernist houses, 919-995-0550. All right, George, take us out.
Visit USModernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 7,000 plus significant modernist houses, and access 2.8 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studio in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by me and Robinson Earl. Carrie Cesarino researches guests while juggling 2 children, a bowling ball, and a chainsaw, all while salsa dancing with husband Adam. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm George Smart, and are the stars out tonight? There's no Frank Sinatra tune that doesn't pair with a visit to Frank's pool in Palm Springs, something we are privileged to experience every year at Modernism Week. We'll be back soon with another All I Do Is Dream of You. As time goes by, I've got you under my skin edition of U.S. Modernist Radio. Cheers.
We're swinging.
We are.